Hi, my name's Cy Horton and I'm an application engineer for our 3D doc team here at FARO UK. During this tutorial I'm going to talk you through the new features of Scene 5.5. This is part 2 of the tutorial where I'm going to focus on scene capture, scene process and the new Freestyle X product. In the previous tutorial we looked at all the new features in Scene 5.5 itself. Firstly, I'd like to introduce you to a new product, which is the FARO Freestyle 3D X with extra accuracy. We've increased the accuracy to 1mm at 1 meter distance, whereas previously we were 1.5mm at 1 meter distance, giving us a more accurate product to add to the portfolio. We've also modified the IP rating, where we're now an IP52 rating. So we still have the same dust protection that we had before, but now we've introduced a water protection against dripping water whilst the device is in a standard idle position with the sensor facing downwards. We've also massively increased the saving time when using the device on the tablet in scene capture or in scene process or in full scene. So as you can see on the screen here, if you're doing a relatively long scan of 210 seconds, in version 1 we had a saving time of around 80 seconds, whereas now we have a saving time of around 10 seconds, so massive savings. We've also given the user the ability to just capture grayscale imagery. This is particularly useful if you're linking the data to focus data and you've only been able to scan in low light conditions where you could only use the grayscale functionality. We've also modified the flash to have an automatic mode. For those people that have used it before, you may remember that the only way to turn the flash off was either to disable it at the beginning before you started scanning, or to disable it during scanning by pressing the icon on the screen. But now in auto flash mode, the system will look at the exposure for the camera and will turn the flash on or off depending on what the environment is. It's also done in a slow mode so it doesn't lose tracking. We've introduced a best point filter where we can show a typical noise reduction of about 40% when scanning the same object from different distances. We remove the points from far distances when there are insufficient or sufficient point density at a closer range, so we're getting better data, the data quality has improved. We now give you the ability to create a report, so if you're doing on-site calibration, which you can do with the calibration plate supplied with every unit, you can then print a report to validate the data that you've scanned. We now have a new visualization tool where we can turn on or off interpolation. So the new tool allows you to create more realistic results than before. So as you can see in this example, we've got a denser point cloud on the right hand side where more data has been captured with the interpolation mode turned on. Prior to this version, when scanning, I always advised that you started the scanner in the vertical position so that when you viewed the scan on the tablet or when you brought the scan into scene process or scene, it was roughly aligned with a vertical alignment, although you could level it, or now you could use the new level commands within FARO Scene 5.5. In the unit there is an IMU, so we're now utilising that IMU so the system is aware of which way is up and which way is down, so the scans will be relatively level when you're bringing them into the system. In addition to this, to cover the law enforcement arena, we also now can produce a calibration certificate to NIST levels, so we have a traceable calibration plate. So, what do you get? New and upgradable features are there for all existing customers. So if you have a current maintenance contract, you get all the new features of scene process, scene capture and full scene. What we have now got is a non-upgradable feature, which is the increased accuracy, because it's a completely new unit to give us the increased accuracy to 1mm. We now have two products. We have the FARO Freestyle 3D with a 1.5mm accuracy, and we have the FARO Freestyle X with a 1mm accuracy. When we compare the two, you can see that pretty much the functionality is the same between the two, apart from we have the increased accuracy of the X product. So now we're going to take a closer look at Scene Capture 5.5. If I go into the options, firstly, we split out the options into two tabs. Under the first tab, we can now turn on what we call interpolation, which is filling in the gaps between the point cloud, so it's given a denser point cloud. We can also turn colour on or off, which I'll come back to in a moment. If we go onto the capture tab, flash here is turned on. If I click again, I can turn it off, exactly the same as before, but if I click again, it now goes into an auto mode. So if I close that dialog box down and start scanning an object, what you won't see on the screen is obviously my flash working, but as I start to move down this fireplace and go into the aperture of the fireplace, you see the point cloud not very good at the moment, but as I move down and move in, the flash starts to come on very slowly, which means it's lighting the aperture and capturing the data a lot better. And as I start to move away, the flash will slowly stop because the light in the room has become to a level where the scanner can still work relatively cleanly. So the next feature, as I work up this chimney breast, when I get to the top, when I reach the ceiling, when I press the button, notice how quickly the scan actually saves. It's a lot quicker than it was in the previous version. And there you can see almost instantly it's saved rather than having to wait for it to save. So that's the first two new features, auto flash and the increased optimization when it comes to saving. The next one we'll look at is the interpolation. I've got one scan here and we'll compare them later on, but if I turn interpolation on, again close the dialog box, and then we'll start scanning again. Also, the flash is working in exactly the same mode because we've still got it turned into auto. So what we'll do is starting to scan the chimney breast again. I'll try and do a similar level scan, so we'll come down and start to get the aperture where the fire should be, and then hopefully when we compare the data once it's been processed, you'll see the quality of the data is a lot better. Again, move around, move up, see if we can get roughly the same area. So finish, let that data save. Again, very quick to save the data. So that's our interpolation example. So we've got one where we had the auto flash, one with interpolation. Next, I'm going to come back into the options, I'm going to turn interpolation off, I'm going to turn colour scan off. And now we'll do a grayscale or black and white scan again. Same thing, because we've got flash on auto, it will start to use the flash for automatic on or off. And straight away on the left hand side you can see that I'm only capturing grayscale imagery now. Again, we'll try and do a similar area. The flash has just come on as we've come down and come into the aperture, so it's lighting the fireplace for me nicely, and then we'll just pick up a little bit of the floor. There we go, press stop. But now straight away another feature, as well as black and white, as you can see that as I rotate, as before it used to rotate all over the place, now you can see that the X, Y and Z down the bottom left hand corner are automatically set. So Z is up because the IMU has understood where I am and it's created the axes of the scan data. So the next thing to show you is the improved tracking. First off, I'm going to go back into the options, turn on the colour scan, close the dialog box down. We'll start scanning the fireplace again, so press the button on the device. We'll start the scan process, then accidentally we'll lose tracking. Now what you'll notice on the screen now is it's saying align the two pictures, but we've lost tracking for 46 frames, 57, 58, so on and so forth. And the system will restart. But if I can find my tracking location, which is quite easy, I lose it again, the system is getting ready to restart. So if we let it count down because we can't lose tracking, it saves you having to press the button on the unit in order to start and stop the tracking to create a new scan. So as soon as it's finished, it saves that scan and we're into starting a new scan. So the only thing you have to remember is that you need to get overlap with the previous scan. So if we came down here, that's about where I lost it. So now you'll notice on the left hand side, before we started we only had 3 scans, but now we've got 5 scans because the unit automatically stopped and restarted again because we couldn't find the tracking location, which makes it a lot easier. You don't have to stand there and try and locate it, it will automatically do it for you. So that covered the points in scene capture. I've now come into scene process. The first thing I'm probably going to do is get rid of those last two scans where we lost tracking. If you remember previous tutorials, I suggested that you needed to rename the scans before you actually process them, because when they're processed you can't rename them. So I'm just going to rename these so I remember what they are. And then this last one should have been the grey. So now I've got my scans all named nicely. I'm just going to hit the process button and let scene process go ahead and process everything for me. The processing of those three scans is now done. One of the options you also get is to look for extensive markers. So if you're using the markers as previously shown in the scene capture tutorial, by enabling this option, the system will then go and look for additional markers that may not have been captured during the scanning process. So it gives you that optional extra there in case things didn't all get picked up at the same time. What you'll notice here, the first thing, is we now have the ability to create clipping boxes. If I'm looking at a scan here and I want to trim it down, exactly the same way as you would in scene, we've got the clipping box that we can place over the point cloud data and start to clip and modify what we see on the screen. This also has the same functionality as demonstrated in the part 1 tutorial, where we can delete visible points, i.e. those within the clipping box, and invisible points, those outside the clipping box. So obviously what we've got on the screen here is the grayscale scan that we did of the fireplace. If we go in and look at the one where we started to look at the flash, I'm just going to get rid of that clipping box so it doesn't apply to everything. And there we can see we've picked up quite a bit of detail. And then if we go into the interpolated scan, you can hopefully start to see the clarity of that scan is a lot better than the clarity of the flash scan. So I'm just going to come up here, right click and turn that into a tabbed document. So we've got our interpolated one there. If I right click and do view and 3D, I can open up the scans side by side and hopefully it will show on the screen. You've got a lot better colour definition, a lot crisper data here. You can see the brick joints on the interpolated one are a lot sharper, whereas on this one they're a little bit pixelated. So you're getting overall a better quality of scan by using the interpolation method. Now one of the things to be aware of is if I look at this interpolated one and I go into the properties, if I go into the capture tab, I still have the ability to turn off the colour data. However, if I click that button now, what it will do is it will undo the processing that we've done on that particular scan, and I'll have to reprocess it. So it's just something to bear in mind. If you've done several hundred seconds worth of scanning in colour and you decide you want to turn it into a grayscale, you're going to have to wait for it to be processed again. So next, we've made some modifications to the place scan option. If I go into place scan and I want to link the flash version with the grayscale version and click next, what the system will now do is giving you live feedback down at the bottom. So you can see here that it's trying to place the two together, and the dialog box is giving you visual feedback to say, well actually I can't place them because I need more targets. The system seems to have picked up a couple of targets over here, so I'm just going to delete those, and all I'm going to do is try and pick up on a few points by zooming in on both. And I think we've got this colorization on the floor here and this pattern, so I'm going to put a point at the end there and a point at the end there. We've got these metal brackets up here, so I'm going to put a point roughly at the corner of that metal bracket, and then I think what I will do, just to give myself some deviation, I'm actually going to mark a plane on that brickwork and a plane on that brickwork. So straight away we've got our 3 points. It's telling us. If we hadn't have matched those 3 points in such a well-mannered fashion, then the system would keep telling us to mark more points. So it's trying to give you more feedback on what it actually needs in order to do the registration. Now that also applies to full scene 5.5 as well. Again, the features between the two systems are identical, so you're getting the same level of features. I'm just going to click next steps on here. It will go through, it will do its rough registration, then it will do its cloud to cloud. So click OK, and I'm just going to close that down, and here you can see we've got the overlap between the colour in flash form and the grayscale over the top of one another. So that about covers the new features for the freestyle, remembering that We also have the calibration report, so when you're doing on-site calibrations you have a physical report that you can attribute to that scan data. We also have the new products, the FARO Freestyle 3DX with increased accuracy to 1mm and also an IP rating of IP52. Thank you for watching. I hope it's been of use, and please feel free to look out for forthcoming movies.